ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضاه. We continue our lessons and we have reached الدرس الخامس, the lesson, the fifth. Together, الدرس الخامس, the fifth lesson. So we're in the fifth lesson, and inshallah today we're going to learn a very important concept which is very common in the Arabic language. But before we start explaining the concept, let's read this conversation or dialogue between these three people. So we have Sa'id, Yasir, and then we have Ali. So it's a conversation between three people. And in this conversation, inshallah, the author is going to introduce this new concept. So let's read. Sa'id says, أكتاب محمد هذا يا ياسر أكتاب محمد هذا يا ياسر. Is the book of Muhammad this, O Yasir? We would say, is this the book of Muhammad, O Yasir? Ya is an additional particle, a harf. As we're going to learn, this is Ya an-Nida, the Ya of calling. When you call someone, you say Ya Yasir, Ya Allah, Ya Fulan, and so on. So he was asked the question, is this the book of Muhammad? Yasir says, La, because the question was posed with Hamza, this harful istifham, the Hamza. When you ask a question with this, you either say La or Na'am in your answer. So Yasir said, La, this is not the book of Muhammad. هذا كتاب حامد. This is the book of Hamid, or this is Hamid's book. We could say book of Hamid or Hamid's book. Sa'id then asks another question. أين كتاب محمد أين كتاب محمد. Where is Muhammad's book, or book of Muhammad? Where is the book of Muhammad? Yasir answers, هو على المكتب هناك هو على المكتب هناك. هو referring to the book, so we're going to say it. It is on the desk هناك, over there. It is on the desk over there. هناك, over there. سعيد أين دفتر عمار أين دفتر عمار. The third question, where is the daftar, the notebook of Ammar? Where's Ammar's notebook? Yasir says, هو على مكتب المدرس. هو, the daftar, so it على مكتب المدرس. It is on the maktab, the desk of the teacher, or the teacher's desk. It is on the teacher's desk. هو على مكتب المدرس. Sa'id asks another question. قلم من هذا يا علي. قلم من. Whose pen? Whose pen is this? يا علي. قلم من هذا يا علي. Whose pen is this, O Ali? Ali answers, هذا قلم المدرس. هذا قلم المدرس. This is the teacher's pen. Pen of the teacher. قلم المدرس. This is the pen of the teacher, or the teacher's pen. سعيد أين حقيبة المدرس. Where is the teacher's bag? Where is the teacher's bag? حقيبة is bag or briefcase. أين حقيبة المدرس. Where is the teacher's bag? علي هي تحت المكتب. هي تحت المكتب. It, referring to the حقيبة, because it's feminine, we say here. The حقيبة is feminine, so we say here. It, the حقيبة, is under. تحت means under. It is under the maktab, the desk. It is under the desk. So in this dialogue, the author, he introduces us to a new concept. And this concept is al-idafa. Al-idafatu, when you link this noun to the second. You join this noun to the second, you ascribe this noun to the second. And it comes for several reasons. There's several reasons why you would do this, why you would link or ascribe this noun to the second. One of the main reasons is to show possession, that this is possessed by this, or this thing, the first noun, belongs to the second noun. So in English, for example, you would say Muhammad's. So you use Muhammad's book. This possessive S shows that this book belongs to Muhammad. Or you use of to show possession. Book of Muhammad. So we have these two tools to show possession in English. In Arabic, one of the ways we show possession is through idafa. So for example, if we wanted to say Muhammad's book, we would say Kitabu Muhammadin. Kitabu Muhammadin. So the thing that's possessed comes first, and the possessor, the one who owns this thing, comes after. This is easier in terms of it matches the layout of the Arabic. Book of Muhammad, Kitabu Muhammad. Okay. Al-idafa comes with some rules. There are some rules that you have to follow in order for the idafa to be correct. If you don't follow these rules, then it's not going to make sense and it's not going to create this relationship between the two nouns. So we're going to mention the rules now. The first rule is that idafa, this relationship or ascription, happens between two nouns. You're not going to have a fi'l in any of these two places, or a harf in any of these two places. It's always going to be a noun and another noun. It's always going to be between two nouns. The first noun is called mudafun. The first noun is called mudafun. The second noun is called mudafun ilayhi. Mudafun ilayhi. So we have two nouns. The first one is called mudafun. The second one is called mudafun ilayhi. Mudafun is the thing that's been ascribed. Mudafun ilayhi, who it's ascribed to. Or in other words, we could say possessed. If it's showing possession, we said that idafa doesn't always come for possession, but if it's coming for possession, then the thing that's been possessed would come first, so possessed, and the possessor, the one who owns it, who it belongs to. Okay, mudafun ilayhi. Possessed, possessor. So kitab is the thing that's possessed. Who possesses it? Who owns it? Muhammad. So he's the possessor. Mudafun ilayhi. This is the first thing that we need to bear in mind. The names of the two nouns. The first noun is called mudaf. The second noun is called mudaf ilayhi. The second point is that the ending of this noun can change. It can change. And we mentioned last lesson that if it is mu'rab, then there's three possible changes. It can be marfu', ending with a dhamma, dhammatain. It can be majroor, ending with a kasra or kasratain. Or it can be mansoob, ending with a fatha or fathatain. So the ending of the mudaf changes. Yeah, its ending changes. So it could be marfu'un, majroorun, or mansubun. Marfu'un, majroor, mansubun, these are states. So the sentence will determine what state that this word is going to be in. Its position in the sentence is what determines what state it's going to be in. So we don't choose, or we want it to be marfu', in this case, majroor. This is not down to us. This is down to its position in the sentence, what meaning we're trying to give. طيب. So if, for example, it's mubtada, the mubtada is the subject of a sentence. We mentioned previously from the criteria of the mubtada is that it is marfu'. If you remember, we said the mubtada is marfu'. So if the mudaf comes as a mubtada, then it's going to be marfu'. If the mudaf, this word here, is preceded by harf jar, it's going to be majroor, and so on. طيب. So point number 2 is that the mudaf, the first noun, its ending changes. It can be marfu', it can be majroor, it can be mansoob. How about the mudaf ilayhi? The mudaf ilayhi only takes one case, and that is it's always going to be majroor. Always majroor. Majroorun. So marfu'un, majroorun, mansubun. Always majroorun. The mudaf ilayhi is always going to be majroorun, hence Muhammadin. Muhammadin. And majroor means it takes one kasra or two kasras. So the second point is that the ending of the mudaf changes, whereas the ending of the mudaf ilayhi is majroor always. We don't have it being marfu' or mansub. This is point number 2. Point number 3 is that the mudaf, the first noun, does not accept al. Will not have al at the start of the word. So al will not come. It will not be al-kitabu. It will not be al-kitabu. So we're not going to have al with the mudaf ilay, with the mudaf, sorry. The mudaf is not going to have al. Whereas the mudaf ilayhi does accept al. It can have al. So with the mudaf ilayhi, al can be present or it can be absent. So it's possible to have al with attached to the mudaf ilayhi. Whereas with the mudaf, you don't have al. That's number 3. Number 4 is at-tanween at the end of mudaf. You will never find at-tanween. So it does not accept tanween. Mudaf ilayhi will not end with tanween. Hence, we don't have tanween here, even though there's no al. Remember, we mentioned that if there's no al, you're going to have tanween. And if you don't have tanween, that means al is there. But the mudaf, from the rules of the mudaf, is that it doesn't take al and it doesn't end with tanween. It doesn't take al and it doesn't end with tanween. Whereas with the mudaf ilayhi, it does accept tanween. So obviously, if it has al, we're not going to have tanween. And if you have tanween, we're not going to have al. So it does accept tanween. So this is the criteria for creating al-idafa. Al-idafa occurs between two nouns. The first one is called mudafun, and the second one is called mudafun ilayhi. For the mudaf, the first noun, its ending changes. The ending of the first noun, the mudaf, changes. It could be marfu'un, it could be majroorun, it could be mansubun. Whereas the ending of the mudaf ilayhi, the second noun, is always majroor. It's always majroor. Rule number 3 is that the mudaf does not accept alif lam. So you never have al attached to the beginning of it. Whereas the mudaf ilayhi does accept al. It can have al, as we are going to demonstrate inshallah in the examples. With the mudaf, it does not accept tanween. So you're not going to have tanween at the end of the mudaf. Whereas the mudaf ilayhi does accept tanween. And when it does have al, we're not going to see tanween. So remember, these two, they don't coexist. Whereas with this one, it doesn't have both. There's no al and there's no tanween. So this is how we create the idafa. And we mentioned that idafa is a link between two nouns. We are ascribing the first noun to the second noun. Why do we do this? One of the reasons why we do this is to show possession. Kitabu Muhammadin, book of Muhammad, book belonging to Muhammad, Muhammad's book. So if we go back now to the dialogue that we read, we can look for the mudaf ilayhi. So here in this first line we have Kitabu Muhammadin. Kitabu Muhammadin. Here these two nouns will say mudaf, and this is mudaf ilayhi. And all the rules are applicable. Another example is here. Kitabu Hamidin. Hamid's book. Here we have mudaf ilayhi. Here also Kitabu Muhammadin, mudaf ilayhi. Daftaru Ammarin. We have mudaf ilayhi. Maktabul Mudarrisi. Here we have mudaf and mudaf ilayhi. And this is an example of where the mudaf ilayhi takes al-mudarrisi. Maktabil Mudarrisi. And this is example of where the maktab, this is the mudaf. Remember, mudaf, the ending of the mudaf changes. It changes. It can be marfu', like here. Marfu'. Here is marfu'. Here is marfu'. Here is marfu'. Or it can be majroor, like here now. For example, the mudaf is majroor here. Why is it majur? Because ala came before it. Ala is a harf jar. So the mudaf changes depending on its position in the sentence or what comes before it. So it can be majrur, marfu or mansub. So here's majrur because harf jar came before it. So this is a harf jar, this is a ism majrur, and at the same time it's our mudaf. And then this is mudaf ilayhi. We said mudaf ilayhi is always majrur. قلم من هذا يا علي. This also is mudaf ilayhi. This is mudaf and this is mudaf ilayhi. The mudaf ilayhi here is man. Man is ismul istifham, the noun that we use to ask questions. And if you remember in our last lesson we explained that some nouns, they are fixed. They are mabniyun. They never change, which is the opposite of mu'rab. Mu'rab is the one where the last haraka of the noun changes. And the opposite mabni doesn't change. So man here is mabni. So if mabni noun comes in the place of mudaf ilayhi, we're not going to see it taking a kasra because its mabni is fixed. The noon is always going to have a sukun on it. It's not going to change. طيب. But it's standing in the place of something which is majur, and that's the mudaf ilayhi. So this also, qalamu man, pen of who is this? Whose pen is this? This is also mudaf ilayhi here. Okay. So if the mudaf or the mudaf ilayhi is a mabni noun, we're not going to see the endings changing. طيب. Another example, qalamul mudarrisi. Mudarris is pen. This is mudaf ilayhi. Haqibatul mudarrisi. This is mudaf ilayhi. Tahtal maktabi. This is mudaf ilayhi. This is also mudaf and mudaf ilayhi. And we notice that the mudaf here ends with a fatha. As we mentioned, the mudaf can change. It can be mansub and ending with a fatha. It can be marfu' ending with a dhamma. It can be majur ending with a kasra. So the mudaf's ending can change, as we mentioned. But the mudaf ilayhi will always be majrur. Will always be majrur. If this is understood, this text is understood, then we need to answer the questions. Tamarin, exercises. The first exercise, أجب عن الأسئلة الآتية. Answer the following questions. And these questions are related to the dialogue that we read. The second piece of homework says أضف الكلمة الأولى إلى الثانية. أضف. You need to do إضافة. You need to ascribe الكلمة الأولى, the first word of these words that are given. You need to ascribe the first word to the second. You need to do إضافة. Connect the first word to the second. How do we do that? Do we just take two nouns and put them next to each other and that's it, we've connected them? No. We need to apply the rules that we took. To create idafa, you need to apply these rules that we mentioned here. So let's do one of them. Or he actually gives us an example. So look at the example. We have kitabun and we have Muhammadun. So they want us to make this mudaf and this mudaf ilayhi. Kitabun is the mudaf. Okay. The rules for the mudaf, we said that it can be marfu, majur, mansub. Okay. We're just going to make it marfu. Al. Does it have al? It doesn't have al, so it's okay. Does it have tanween? Yes, it has tanween. So we have to take off the tanween. Can't say kitabun because the mudaf does not take tanween. So it has to be kitabu. Okay, we've applied all the rules for kitabun. So it has to be kitabu. And Muhammad, the rules for the mudaf ilayhi, we said always majhul. So we need to change the dhammatain to kasratain and say Muhammadin. And say Muhammadin. There's no al and there's no tanween. Or there is tanween, so it does accept tanween. So Muhammadin. And that's it, we're done. So we have Kitabu Muhammadin. Kitabu Muhammadin. Now we've done idafa. This construction here is idafa here. We have mudaf ilayhi. Previously, these were just two random nouns next to each other. We can't say mudaf ilayhi because they're just two random nouns. There's no meaning. Whereas here we have a meaning. Kitabu Muhammadin, Muhammad's book. The other example that we've given is Maktabun and Al-Mudarrisu. Maktabun has to end with one dhamma, no tanween. No tanween. So we take off the tanween. So Maktabu and Al-Mudarris, we have to make it majroor. That means it has to end with one kasra because it has al. If it has al, so it ends with one kasra. Al-Mudarrisi. If it was without the al, it would be Mudarrisin. Mudarrisin. But because it has al, we say Al-Mudarrisi. So maktabu al-mudarrisi. Together we read it maktabul mudarrisi. Maktab, the desk of the teacher. The teacher's desk. The teacher's desk. So this is the second homework. We need to do idafa. Ascribe the first nouns to the second. اقرأ واكتب مع ضبط أواخر الكلمات. Read and write with ضبط, vowelization of the endings of the words. So this is testing us to see if we can create mudaf ilayhi from these words. They are already mudaf ilayhi. We just have to read them correctly, applying those rules that we mentioned. Number 4, اقرأ, read. So this is a reading exercise. We want to see if you are able to read these sentences, inshallah. I want everyone to try and read them according to what we have studied and what we have mentioned. The next piece of homework says كون جملا مفيدة بملء الفراغ فيما يلي. كون, construct, جملا, sentences, مفيدة, beneficial. Construct beneficial sentences بملء, by filling the gaps, فيما يلي, in that which follows. We need to fill in the gap and complete the sentence so that it's meaningful. Al-bayti mughlaqun. Al-bayti. There's two possibilities that can come here. Because this ends with a kasra, I've learned that there's two things which make the noun that comes after it end with a kasra. Either harf jar, or a noun referred to as the mudaf. So if I was to say fil bayti mughlaqun, in the house closed, on the house closed, that doesn't give me a meaningful sentence. So it can't be a harf jar. So I need to bring a mudaf and add it to this mudaf ilayhi so that the whole sentence makes sense. And mughlaqun means closed. Mughlaqun is the opposite of maftuhun. It means closed. طيب. The next exercise is صحح التركيبات التالية. صحح means correct. التركيبات, these compounds, these words that have been put together. التالية, the following compounds. صحح التركيبات التالية. صحح التركيبات التالية. Correct the following compounds. So he is basically giving you mudaf ilayhi, but he is doing them incorrectly. So you need to correct them by applying the rules that we mentioned. So this is the final piece of homework, inshallah. And next lesson, we're going to start from here. Once we have gone through the homework, we're going to start from here. This is the lesson for today. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.